call to the October 25th, 2021 meeting of Eugene Urban Renewal Agency. Thank you for joining us in this remote meeting format we're using as our state and community continue to deal with the COVID-19 pandemic. This format enables the City Council to meet and take care of business while keeping everyone safe. For work sessions like this one, where there is no opportunity for public comment, those wishing to access the meeting can do so by watching the live stream available on our website, the broadcast on Comcast Channel 21, or by calling into one of the phone numbers listed for this meeting on the public webcast and meeting materials web page. Looking ahead, tonight's regular meeting will include a public forum. Information about how to participate is available also on the public webcast and meeting materials web page. And as always, other avenues of communication with me and city councilors are available, including email and voicemail. So thank you all for joining us. And with that, I'm going to turn this directly over to the city manager to talk about the steam plant redevelopment update.
Thank you, Mayor and Councilor. I'm joined here by our community development team. So I believe Will Dowdy is going to kick this off.
I can. Hello, everyone. Good evening. I'm Will Dowdy, Community Development Director, and I'm here with Amanda D'Souza. And tonight we're going to talk to you about the steam plant. I wanted to just start by sharing a little bit. Recently, I had the opportunity to be back inside the building. I know that some of you had that opportunity as well. Honestly, I was surprised and a little bit saddened by what you might call the anthropogenic decline of the building. There's been there's been a lot of people who have broken into the building, gotten in there somehow or another. There's spray paint on the boilers, graffiti. There's racks of dials. Some of the mystique and aura of the building is in this old equipment, and you see racks of dials, and then you'll see a missing one that someone has pried off and taken away. The building's aged a lot. This conversation tonight is about the steam plant. It's about saving and restoring that building. It's a piece of history. It's a piece of our cultural heritage. Years ago, you started this process to find someone who could save the building and transform it into a community amenity. In a moment, Amanda's going to walk you through the project description and talk to you about community and access and views and history and art and the future and all those things. What might be overlooked, and what I want to just call your attention to briefly, is that once this gets started, this is a self-sustaining vision. And I know that you're all in the world of dealing with ongoing operational budgets. So I'll just say that again. This is a self-sustaining vision that will keep this building preserved and maintained and public for years to come. Amanda, why don't you walk through the rest of it?
Okay, thanks, Will. Can you see that PowerPoint? Good. Okay, well, we last spoke to you about the steam plant this past May, and at that time, we presented an updated vision for the building and brought a set of proposed terms for your consideration. Since then, we've continued negotiations with the team as they've continued to dive deeper into their updated vision and respond to changing market conditions. Today's work session is the first of 3 potential work sessions for you to discuss the steam plant. Originally, we had hoped to present an updated set of terms for consideration today. We're close with those terms, but we're still working out some final details. Instead, we wanted to use today as an opportunity to make sure you have the information you need in order to take the steps necessary to move this project forward in the coming months. Today's work session is for information only. You aren't being asked to take any action, although we will outline potential next steps. I'll start off by reminding you of our goals for the redevelopment. Anchoring the southern end of the downtown riverfront, the steam plant will play a vital role in the site. It will need to complement the future housing development and add to the vibrancy of the riverfront park. The 2010 EWEB master plan captured the community's vision of the historic preservation of the building. There's been no shortage of ideas about what to do with the building, and it's a once-in-a-lifetime redevelopment opportunity. There's nothing like it in our community in terms of the type of building, its historic use, and its location in such close proximity to the river. Because we'll never get another opportunity like this one, we want to get it right, making sure it's something that is accessible to the community and financially stable in the long run. We knew when we started this process in 2018 that having a vision was not enough, We also needed a team with the capacity to realize that vision. It's a very complicated building, which makes it even more challenging to get it right. Knowing that some sort of public assistance is going to be needed to support this redevelopment, we also want to make sure that once the public invests in it, it will be able to sustain itself. All of these considerations have influenced how we've approached the steam plant redevelopment, which brings me to a quick recap of what we've done until now. In 2018, you approved a process and criteria for disposition and redevelopment of the steam plant. This process created a structure for next steps, but had built-in flexibility for finding the right development team for the site. After the RFQ was released in the summer of 2018, the development team, led by Mark Mixus and Mark Frohnmeyer, were invited to prepare a full proposal. We conducted community outreach in early 2019, and in April of that year, the agency board selected the proposal to move forward, and we began negotiations. And then 2020 hit, and we realized having a strategy can only get you so far. Since then, we've been working with the development team to figure out what next steps for the project look like, including them going back to the drawing board and reworking their vision to find a feasible building program. We originally brought you the set of terms and an update on their project in May of this year. However, we've continued to work with them as they further refine their vision for the redevelopment, which I'll now tell you more about. As you know, the team, identified as Dream Plan LLC, proposes to save and reuse the building, transforming it into an iconic community destination that connects people with downtown and the Willamette River. The team's led by two individuals who grew up and built their lives in Eugene. They understand the important role this building can play for our community, showcasing our assets while providing an opportunity for all members of the community to engage with Eugene's culture and natural environment. They also recognize the importance of pursuing a model that can operate sustainably in the long run. From the get-go, they've seen the upper levels of the building as providing the fiscal foundation needed to make the redevelopment feasible. Their initial 2019 proposal depended exclusively on office space on the upper floors. However, COVID-related market changes led the team to shift their proposal. They're now pursuing a mix of uses that would bring vibrancy, accessibility, and long-term viability to the project. First, the Dream Plan is now proposing to anchor the financial aspects of the steam plant's preservation with an independent hotel. They've been working closely with the group that runs two locally oriented boutique hotels in Oregon to further develop their vision for the steam plant. The hotel would anchor the experiential aspects of the building, capturing the energy of the historic setting and serving as a hub for Eugenians and visitors to the Willamette Valley alike. The 70+ rooms would have a range of price points so that a variety of folks would be able to access the hotel, and each space would celebrate the history of the building, incorporating the building's found items mixed with local art. In addition to providing the fiscal foundation for the building's operation, there are benefits that would go beyond the walls of the steam plant. This includes out-of-town visitors who would be bringing their money into our local economy, and the city's direct benefit from the transient room tax revenue generated by the hotel, which partially funds our cultural services department. With the updated proposal, the ground floor would remain a gathering place where people can come to work and play, collaborate and think big, and experience a setting for arts and culture amidst Eugene's world-class beer, wine, coffee, and food. The team would partner with the city to offer community members and visitors opportunities to engage with the historic building and the river, including the activation of a new overlook that would be built on the existing water intake structure sitting on the edge of the river. A large restaurant space immediately adjacent to the riverfront park and a publicly accessible rooftop deck will feature local food and drink with the dramatic industrial backdrop of the steam plant and views of the Willamette River. The centerpiece of the ground floor will be a flexible and adaptive performance and exhibit space. This was something the Dream Plant team added in response to hearing the community's desire to see the steam plant become a place for the creation and enjoyment of art. The venue will showcase Eugene's talented music, dance, and other performers, and be an engaging space for exhibiting visual art, hosting demonstrations, lectures, and speaker series. The hotel will feature local art prominently in fixed and rotating installations and will offer artist fellowship programs to help boost the local artist exposure. The STEAM plant's unique proximity to the university, downtown, and the river provide an opportunity to build a knowledge transfer bridge, further knitting the academic community with Eugene's technology and entrepreneurship clusters. The building will include a flexible office space, a mix of co-working, community and university classes, venture incubation for startups, and established anchor tenants. The team is also exploring partnership opportunities with the university to host a multidisciplinary leadership institute. Finally, the building is eligible to be listed on the National Register of Historic Places, and the team intends to pursue this designation. That process would ensure the preservation of the building and the honoring of its historic character in its redevelopment. The team is working with preservation experts on the design of the building. They'll preserve the exterior of the older portions and reconstruct the newest portion, which was constructed using asbestos-bearing transit panels. Only one boiler is remaining in the building, which the team plans on preserving and using within the performance space. They also plan on preserving much of the existing equipment, putting it on display throughout the building and incorporating it into interpretive features and art. Before I talk about next steps, I'll briefly touch base on the information that the board requested at the May 2021 work session. First, we had mentioned that the building was appraised in 2019 to be negative $8 million. Your AIS includes a little bit more background on that appraisal and the approach used. And my colleague Ann Fifield is here today if you have any follow-up questions about the property value. There was also a question about what the price of vacant land would be. Because the agency board has provided direction to pursue adaptive reuse, we have not conducted an appraisal on the vacant land. However, we can look at the adjacent land, and the fair market value purchase price that Atkins Dame is paying for the adjacent sites is about $31 per square foot. Applying that to the steam plant parcel would result in a price of a little over $1 million, though that does not account for the demolition costs or any land use restrictions on the site. Finally, there was a question about utilities in the building. The dream plan has indicated they're committed to operating the building with progressive environmental practices, including committing to a non-carbon-based fuel source for all the primary mechanical systems in the building. Now that you've heard an update on the vision, we need to consider the feasibility and challenges of the vision. You've heard me say before that adaptive reuse of this building is going to be very challenging. As you heard from Will, there's been years of disuse, general aging, and then because of the very specialized use it was built and designed for, the building will need considerable investment and restoration before it can be usable. And the fact that the team is listing it on the National Historic Register adds another layer of complexity. Since April 2019, staff have been working with the Dream Plant team to negotiate terms for the steam plant redevelopment. The agency board considered an initial draft at the May 2021 work session. However, several factors have resulted in a need to revisit the project's cost and draft terms. Not surprisingly, these factors include the changing economic and market conditions that we've seen over the past year and a half, but we also needed to take into account the Bureau of Labor and Industries, or BOLI, determination that the adjacent vertical development by Atkins Dame is considered a public works project. While that determination did not include the steam plant, it does imply that the steam plant project would likely also be subject to prevailing wages. These factors most notably impacted the project's anticipated financial need. The prior estimated project cost was about $24 million. The deal you reviewed in May proposed that the agency would make a potential public investment of about 1.5 to 2 million towards the project, in addition to contributing the property with a negative $8 million value. The current proposal is estimated to cost about 56 million. This takes into account several factors, including the updated design. For example, a hotel is going to need a lot more plumbing than an open office space. And the cost also accounts for the significant inflation of construction costs that we've seen and the assumed prevailing wage determination. Based on their current financial models, the Dream Plant team estimates their funding gap to be about $6.7 million. Now that we've taken a big picture look at the project, you're probably wondering what happens next. Currently, you're tentatively scheduled to discuss proposed terms at your November 10th work session. We also plan on bringing you more information in December for a discussion about the other upcoming riverfront projects, including affordable housing and parking and mobility. If you were to take action on November 10th to approve the deal points, that December work session would be an opportunity for you to discuss and to potentially take action on funding options for the steam plant to address that financial gap. And with that, I'll hand it back to you for discussion and any questions you may have.
Thank you so much. It's such a compelling project and kind of awesome in the sense of huge and complicated project to undertake, and a huge investment in that riverfront park. So I'm actually very pleased to hear that the developers are looking at a national registry for that building, because it's a pretty unique place. So with that, looks like Councilor Groves. Randy, you want to ask the first question?
Well, of course. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you very much for the presentation. I did have an opportunity to attend one of the sessions with the developers to hear their vision. And I also saw the level of wanton destruction that had occurred inside this building. And to me, this is just taking a second to address that. This is an affront to our entire community. The property damage, theft, it just has to stop here. It's damaging the fabric of our community. Okay, I'll get off that for now, but I do want to talk about that later at some point. I also wanted to say that I was so impressed with both Mark Mixis and Mark Frohnmeyer and their vision for this beautiful project. And I'm reminded the importance of working with local developers when we can. Not only do they understand our community, but they have skin in the game. They care, and it was very apparent in listening to them talk and the passion that they expressed for this. I don't want to take a lot of time on this, but I am concerned about the $6.7 million gap. I can certainly see why it's there. I do want to say too that I think the pivot to the hotel plan makes a lot of sense for a lot of reasons. I mean, we are short on hotel rooms in our community for all the events that we have, and placing, having this close to the U of O campus just makes it well positioned. I also want to say that, it's nice to be able to keep people in our own community when we can, when they come to visit. And this certainly takes that into consideration. But do we have any idea of funding sources that would be available for this $6.7 million gap? And I know you're going to get into more detail on this later, but just so we can kind of be processing this a little bit in our minds.
Yeah, so we'll plan on bringing you some funding options or presenting some at the next work session, but kind of the two biggest ones that have come to mind are the potential for urban renewal funding. And then there's also the potential to ask the state for support as well.
Great, that gives something for us to look at. Also around along the lines of urban renewal funding, maybe not at that work session, but is some point in the future, are we going to be talking about the urban renewal district and pros and cons for renewing that? Because I recognize that that's going to be expiring in the near future.
Now, Will, do you want to take this one?
Sure. I could just say that one of the part of that lineup of follow-up sessions that Amanda described includes the opportunity to talk about some of the projects that the agency board has previously identified as potential projects for urban renewal dollars. One of the things that we, I think, have been clear about in previous discussions is that the possibility for spending exceeds what the district has capacity to do when you look at the full list of projects and when you consider possible ranges of how much investment could be made to each. So so I think that conversation is necessarily opportunity for the agency board to step back and decide if you want to pursue something grander with urban renewal, because it's implicit in the question about what you would like to do with these projects.
Okay, thank you. I will look forward to hearing more about that. And then one last thing I just wanted to emphasize, and you certainly touched on it in the presentation, but the fact that that ground floor area of this proposal would be open and usable by the public. You would not have to be a hotel guest there. And I just want to make sure the public that's listening understands that ground floor space would still be public access. The tables outside would be public access. And I think that's important. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Claire, and then Mike.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for the presentation, the update. I also got to meet with Mark and some of the folks on the development team, and including the folks from the hotel company that is working with them. But I wanted to step back and just for the public, just to remind us that this redevelopment is part of the larger, broader redevelopment of the whole former eWeb industrial site. And so it really is an important southern asset for that whole new neighborhood and park and all the other pieces that we're hoping to have there, including affordable housing. And that's gonna, to have this an attractive, vibrant place for people to gather here, I think is a huge asset to that new neighborhood, to downtown, as well as the university, because it really kind of connects down towards that area as well. I think the pivot to a hotel was a really good choice. I was a little skeptical of the whole shared workspace model that was originally proposed, even before the pandemic kind of revealed the holes in that plan. As Councilor Groves mentioned, you know, you might think we have enough hotel rooms in this town, but they all book up on game weekend, all of them. I know I've had friends try to come and book a few days before a game. It's not possible. And this would be a unique hotel that would attract visitors who want to enjoy the other amenities that we have in our area, not just a room to stay at during a football game. I also appreciate that we are working with a local development team who have demonstrated their commitment to our local community in many ways. I did have a question. I wasn't sure if the rooftop piece was new from the last iteration.
Yeah, that's something that they've added in the past few months. They've kind of figured out if that they would be able to build a deck on top and that there would be elevator access. And they've told us that the community, anyone in the community can go up there. You don't have to be a patron of the deck and bar up there. So anyone can go check out those views.
And that will be amazing. So that's really exciting that they've added that. I also love the performance space concept as well as the art space. And right before this meeting, my husband asked me to advocate that there be a steampunk art exhibit. And I told him that I would not. So don't tell him. I'm also concerned about the vandalism, and I'm wondering if there's anything we can do. It's still our property. We should be protecting it. And so I am interested in what we might be able to do to reduce the vandalism and stop it from continuing. And I do know that some of our local legislators also came and spoke with the developers and got to see the steam plant in preparation for the idea that we may be asking the state legislature to help us close that $6.7 million gap. Thanks.
Thank you, Mike, and then Jennifer.
Thank you, Mayor. And thank you to staff for the presentation. I appreciate that. Obviously, I echo my colleagues' sentiments about this being such an important landmark place in our community, and the importance of moving carefully and intelligently forward. I'll look forward to the conversation as we go. I will say I've received a number of emails, and I have concerns about the idea of a number that big of 6.7 million in an environment where we have plenty of other municipal challenges that we can't seem to get to financially and otherwise, without a city hall, without a number of things that, and a number of problems that our financial aspects keep us from addressing thoroughly. I know that the funding options we're talking about, the local ones like the Riverfront Urban Renewal District, are a different pot of money than what we might spend to do other things. We all know that, but I don't think the general public differentiates that anywhere nearly as clearly as we do, and would have a different response to us spending that kind of money. So I'll look forward to the conversations about what the state is willing to do. And finally, I'll say that if there's anyone capable of turning a dream into an actual organization that moves forward, look at Arcimoto, and anybody in our community that watches a guy say, I have this idea for this thing, and then it's on the New York Stock Exchange. I have full confidence in the team's ability to do the work of bringing to reality the plan in its final form. I just would like to see us limit the local dollars going into that place, especially when we have so many other competing demands. So I'll look forward to the conversation continuing.
Okay, Jennifer and then Matt.
Thanks, Mayor. So I will also say that I had the chance to check out the steam plant recently as well and talk to the team. And I want to thank Will for convincing me to go up one of the scary ladders, although I would not go up the second one. And I kind of regret that just a little bit now, but I think it was a good choice. I think this plan makes a lot of sense. I was worried about the flexible office space as well, and just figured that they knew what they were talking about. But I think reevaluating that at this time makes a lot of sense. But like Mike, I have a serious concern about the amount of money that we need to put into this. And with all the competing needs in our community, that putting this much money in a building would not be my first choice. When I'm really interested, I think like all of us, to hear more specifics about your guys' funding ideas. I assume when you ask for money from the state, you don't get to just ask for everything. So if we're asking for this, I'd like to know what we're not going to be able to ask for, or if there are no other things that we would, like if we're giving something up to get this, I want to know what that is, if there is anything. And I think Claire already clarified. So the gathering place on the first floor and the place up on the top will be fully accessible to the community. You don't have to buy anything. You don't have to do anything. You just walk in and sit down and have fun. Okay, excellent. All right, I want to make sure. And I think that's it. I really appreciate the presentation.
Thank you, Matt, and then Alan.
Thanks, Mayor. Back when we met in May, if memory serves, it was impressed upon us that the top floor could potentially be a multi-use or multi-mixed use potential for affordable or market rate housing throughout the steam plant, if memory serves. Is that a correct assessment, Amanda?
Market rate housing was one of the potential uses that they were exploring, and I think as they've explored the hotel option more, it's definitely come to the top as the most feasible and sensible for the building.
Got it. And the property adjacent part of that whole EWEB project, it delivers around 170 market rate units. Is that correct?
I forget how many, and maybe Will knows us how much other market rate housing is going to be coming. There is also the affordable housing lot, which will have a minimum of 75 units there, which you'll hear more about in December. Or Will?
Sure. The each lot that is part of the riverfront development that we're working on with Atkins Dame has a range, but I believe that immediately next door, we're looking at something like 100 units. I guess it probably it could be maybe a little bit lower with that if it was townhouses, but it could be well above that if it's multifamily. So it could be hundreds of units there. In general, I think the whole riverfront site is somewhere between 500 units on the low end and 1,200 units on the high end.
That's exciting. Because to Councillor Clark's point, and it's a rhetorical question, but certainly one that we will hear from the community. Do we need more hotels, in particular boutique hotels, at a time when we're experiencing a housing and even an unhoused crisis? Now, I recognize there are different buckets of money, but here we are trying to fill a $6.7 million gap to see this project come to fruition. Frankly, I applaud the fact that the Bureau of Labor and Industries has ruled such that we should adhere to prevailing wage law. I think fundamentally we should have a community benefits agreement in which all public projects in the city, or they're subsidized or supported by the city, should adhere to prevailing wage law. That being said, I would hope that whatever hotel, and I have yet to tour the facility with Mark and with Mark. I look forward to doing so, but I would hope that whatever hotel opens up embraces the opportunity to have a workforce that's unionized and that prevailing wages are paid once the steam plant is open for business. And finally, I want to stand solidly with Councillor Syrette's husband in advocating for steampunk art on the scene, and in particular, science, technology, engineering, arts, and math on the site. I'm most excited about the multi-use or public art space of all the facets of this particular project. I think you can read between the lines about my not disdain, but my cautiousness when it comes to erecting yet another boutique hotel. I recognize that when the Ducks are in town, it's hard to find a room, but here we are, and it's a Monday. 59% of hotels are available right now. If I'm going to wrap my head around one thing that I love about this project, it's the incubator element, the opportunity to have students and startup companies in the space and opening a part of our beautiful riverfront up to open to the public. I look forward to the work session in which we talk about parking, electric vehicle parking in particular. I see I'm I'm out of time, Mayor. If there's a second round, I'll add to that.
Yes, I'll put you in a second round. Alan and then Emily.
Hi, Mayor. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Good. Sorry for no video. I'm in transit, so back to my house from a trip. There is a lot to like about this project. We do need more hotel space. It's exciting to see a really cool, iconic building get rehabilitated, but doing that, as we found out with City Hall, is extremely expensive to do. Thus, the price tag jump. It's got some really good aspects to it that would result in some public benefit, but not that much public benefit. Having cool spaces to go to isn't high on my public benefits list of things. So I guess I have the same concern that other people have said, which is that $6.7 million is a big gap. And I think that's going to be very difficult for the city of Eugene to participate in, especially given all our priorities. And especially if it means taking the urban renewal district and extending it and increasing the spending debt limit. That will be very problematic for me, because that's the only way you can get more urban renewal money. Curious what other options there are beside that from the state and maybe even federal. Maybe there's ARPA money that can be used for parts of this, or maybe historic preservation dollars. But I guess I just have, given all our competing interests for money, investing in a hotel that would be a cool place, but isn't on the top of my list. But I think the project's really cool. I like the pivot. I at least I'll be able to get, most people will be able to go use it as opposed to an office space, which most people wouldn't. Thanks.
Thank you. Emily.
Thank you. I'm not going to have a lot of new things to say, but I think these are all important things. I got to see the inside of the steam plant my first month on council, and I just loved it. I spent a couple hours in there taking pictures and climbing all those scary staircases. So when I got to see it a few weeks ago and I saw the destruction, I just was really horrified and saddened and angry about it. You know, we have so many problems already, and that belongs to all of us. So, but anyway, I was really enchanted with the plan and the way it had evolved, because I do love the steam plant, and it didn't really feel inclusive, and I really felt heard, and that's always a nice thing to have happen. So I'm very excited about the ground floor being open. The roof being open is even more fun, and to have another performance space. I know that more hotels, we don't need hotels every day, but this one I think is very special, and it's on the river, and we don't have a lot of development on the river, and I really hope we will not. This could all go away and I would be fine with it, but it's exciting nonetheless. And I think it's one of those things that'll put Eugene on the map, but we're already on the map. That will have a draw, you know, like the national park lodges do. And they were careful to make different sizes of rooms that accommodate different price ranges. And I was really impressed by that. You know, it won't be cheap, but I could go stay there for a night or two. And I think that that's a really cool thing that they did. The connection, you know, location with the university and Fifth Street expansion and my beloved downtown. I think it, and Alton Baker's on the other side and Oakway. I think it's right in the middle of our city. The localness, I really like it. And so when we were done with our tour and our talk, I was so excited, and I still am so excited. I said, but you know, you're telling me the money doesn't quite match up. They didn't tell me. I don't remember hearing $6.7 million. So let's dream. Let's find that money. I agree. We need other things really, really desperately, but I also think that it's okay to keep our eyes open all around the circle of opportunities, and that there's many things that make life worth living, and this could be one of them. Let's see what we can do. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I have several counselors lined up for a second round, but I'm gonna jump in here and say a couple of things, partly in response to what folks have said. And this project, this question of the steam plant, I took this challenge to a mayor's design conference workshop in, I think, 2018. So, and I will just have to say that that at that workshop, everybody was excited about the potential of this project. There was a huge sort of investment in that we should proceed with this work, that it had a lot of value. And that was part of the message that I took when I went on the tour last week as well, which is that investors are eager to do this. And this is much more private investment than public investment is involved in this endeavor. And so I would say one other thing, I agree that the 6.7 million gap gives me a little bit of heartburn, and I'm anxious about where that money's going to come from. At the same time, I would say this is not just a hotel for visitors. This is an economic engine. It's an important economic engine. And as Will said in the beginning, this is a self-sustaining venture. This is not like building affordable housing that will need operational funds for the foreseeable future. This is a sustainable investment, self-sustaining. So we are not putting money in that we will then have to put in again and again. We are trying to invest in economic development, and that is a public benefit. The public benefit doesn't stop with the open spaces that people can access. The public benefit actually begins with the revenue that this produces, that then helps us pay for the other things that we need to pay for as a city. And so I think it's really important not to lose sight of that, because it's rare that we have this kind of huge private investment that is going to generate revenue for us as a city and jobs as a city. So, and also pointing out that the U of O has a is pretty vested interest in this as well in terms of their leadership. So even though post game day, the sports fans go away, but actually there will be business and academic travelers here. The night campus will draw those people. There's room for this hotel, I think, to be busy, and I think they expect to be. So just keep that in mind. It's not a one-off. It's going to generate some income. Now for second rounds, I have Randy, then Claire.
Thank you, Mayor. And basically, you said just about everything I was going to say more eloquently. But I agree with what you're saying about what this means. I'll also add that this is an anchor point for the riverfront development, and I think a big piece of connecting it back to the downtown and the U of O. The last thing I just wanted to mention was something I asked the hotel representatives that were there at the meeting, and I was very impressed with them as well, was about parking. I was concerned whether or not there was adequate parking available with our limited parking plan, and they said there is. Under the model that they have used in other communities in more urbanized environments, they find that most people are going to come from a point of transportation like an airport and take, whether it's Uber or a cab, excuse me, to the hotel. And then there would be an opportunity to walk, rent bikes, rent Arcimotos, and basically be able to move around the community without having an internal combustion engine as part of that once they're at the hotel site. So I think they've really thought this through. And there's other communities, Baltimore, for example, has the power plant that is on their inner harbor that's turned into a beautiful place and an anchor point for that entire area. It's a much bigger development, but it's also a much bigger city. But you just kind of get an idea of what's out there with these historic buildings from a time in our past and bringing this forward. I really hope there's a way to figure out how to do this. I mean, I too am concerned about the 6.7 million, but out of a price tag of 56 million, and as the mayor said, it's going to continue generating resources for our community. I'd sure like to find a way to do it, but again, I too am concerned about what we won't be able to have if we have to come up with this. Thank you.
Thank you. Claire, and then Matt.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I just wanted to kind of reflect on some of the things and share what I learned when I met with the developers and the hoteliers. So the boutique hotel is the reason for the support of a revolving art scene in the building. That's a direct nexus, and I believe it was an idea that was generated by the hospitality folks. And I don't know if folks have had a chance to visit the lobby of the Gordon Hotel, but they've done similar things in terms of engaging local artists, purchasing their work, hanging it on the walls. And that is a moniker of a boutique hotel that you don't get with another kind of establishment. I also do want to echo Councillor Keating that I also support the fact that this project was found to be subject to prevailing wage. I don't think that's a negative thing. And as far as the wages that the hotel pays, the folks from the hotel group did speak to me about the caliber of staff that they work to hire, train, and retain, which requires a higher wage than would be typical at another type of hotel. So that they would have staff who would help coordinate with the local artists to help support the artist in residence, perhaps be the contact for the shared meeting space. And so they'd have a lot of responsibilities beyond just checking people in for their rooms. I'll have to respectfully disagree with Councilor Zelinka. I think having cool spaces for people to go is a huge enhancement to our quality of life. Particularly when those spaces are accessible to all, which would be the case here. But I don't think the city needs to be solely responsible for filling this gap, but our support of this project will be critical in terms of generating support from our local legislature for making an ask of this money. So it's not necessarily on our shoulders to pony up the dollars, but it is, I think, on our shoulders to say, we think this is a smart, viable project that is worthy of support from the state. And I believe those dollars could be found through the lottery dollars, but I'm not positive. And then to the mayor's point, in addition to the hotel tax, once this goes into private lands, it's going to generate property tax, something that it's never done. So I particularly want to encourage Councillor Keating to have that meeting with the developers and speak to the hoteliers if you're able, because I think they'll really help get some of your questions and concerns addressed.
Thank you, Matt, and then Mike.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Councilor Syrat. I have a good relationship with both Mark and Mark, and I look forward to touring the facility. The time I was going to, I entertained my first house guest at our new place here, who happens to be on the call tonight. I'll keep her name off the record, but I just couldn't get off the hill to go tour the facility. But I look forward to doing a walkthrough with both Mark and Mark. I do want, I don't want to insert myself or paint myself as a pseudo architect by any stretch of the imagination. But when Randy and I, Councilor Groves and I, were floating down the river, we got on in Springfield at Island Park, and we could have used a beer right around the time that we approached where the eWeb riverfront area. And it was impressed upon us that there was a longing for an exit ramp river left for the kayakers. And when we talk about, putting Eugene on the map, we have 8 home games or so when the Oregon Ducks play, but the Willamette River, the Mackenzie River, they're here all year round. And we're floating down the river. And there's an opportunity to drive river tourism to increase the amount of folks who kayak and float down the river. And I think it's a real missed opportunity that a disembarkment or an exit river left to get right up by that river, that new refurbished steam plant facility just isn't there. And I think that's a real missed opportunity. So I wanted to highlight that point about attracting kind of the river going folks. And it seems as if it's, I'm calling, we're in the 9th inning. That's not going to change. The plan's not going to change. But I highlight the missed opportunity because when there are projects of this size, I think we need to be looking far greater than just right here in our own backyard about how we're attracting folks from all over the country or all over the world to spend their dollars right here in Eugene. Mayor, I'll leave it at that. I do look forward to returning November 10th and meeting with Mark and Mark beforehand. I have a lot of questions about funding, about ARPA funds. I referenced that I've got questions about electric parking. I've got questions about what was presented to us back in May. There seemed to be kind of almost a Goldilocks scenario. We could have done a lot of high-end top shelf items revolving around public art installations. There could be an opportunity to scale those monies back. How could we get the most bang for our buck and do the best good for the most amount of public for the least amount of dollars seems to be the equation. But I look forward to touring the facility and having a larger discussion come November.
Thank you. And Mike.
Thank you, Mayor. Councilor Keating, in a couple of his references, beat up my questions really well. There's a nice little segue there. When he talks about being able to exit the river for a beer, that sounds awesome. That sounds like a great idea. My questions are around the public interaction with the space. Okay? In all the pictures that were shown, what I saw in each of the different slides was some kind of either rendering or photograph of a different space, obviously, that all had tables, chairs, awnings, umbrellas that showed public use of the space for people dining. So is a significant restaurant a part of this plan?
Yeah, there will be restaurant space as part of the ground floor. I think it, and there's still a lot of details to work out, but it would,
Sure.
I might imagine it'd be much more of a casual space versus a like table service space.
Okay. So can you give me any more
Kind of
details
more
there?
food, like a food court vibe versus a sit down restaurant.
And there's also a cafe bar concept for the top, for the roof. Just provide service up there as well.
In almost any case, a restaurant's going to require natural gas in the kitchen. Will that already be precluded from this in the planning?
I'm not sure. Well,
It's not precluded at this point. The commitment that they've made is around primary building. I guess so it'd be heat. So that's what they've been focused on with talking about non-carbon based. They are exploring what options would be available for a restaurant space.
Can you speak more to the capacity if it's a food court type thing? I mean, aside from the art portion, I'm trying to get a kind of understanding of the scale of public interaction. How many people can go there and hang out and enjoy the space and have something to eat? I mean, are we talking about hundreds of seats, a couple of dozen, 10? What are we looking at for public capacity to use the space?
that's a very good question. That's, I think, something that we can talk to the marks and see. I don't know today what that capacity looks like, but I'm sure they've had thoughts about that as they've been refining their design. So we can bring that information back on the 10th.
Because if somebody asked, thank you very much. If somebody asked me, would I rather see the city participate in something that's undefined yet with regard to dining and that sort of thing, as opposed to, say, I don't know, hypothetically, like if the city were to support a baseball park, for example, I would think there would be more potential for public use in the latter than the former. And so those dollars would compete, obviously, and those would be interesting conversations. So for me, I want to see the scale of the public's ability to enjoy the place as high as possible, rather than just as a hotel or just as a place with public art. I'd like to see it have broad community appeal for enjoyment and use. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for this presentation. We are all eager to hear the next round. So thank you very much for all of that information. It is a very exciting project and a complicated one. And appreciate that. Look forward to seeing you again in just a few weeks. And with that, I am going to adjourn the Urban Renewal Agency meeting and call to order the Eugene City Council meeting for our next item, which is the Human Rights Commission work plan for FY22. And Manager, I'll kick it over to you.
Thank you, Mayor. In the interest of time, I'll just ask Fabio Andrade to kick us off.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm Fabio Andrade with the Office of Human Rights and Neighborhood Involvement, and I'm joined by Amanda McCluskey, who is the chair of the Human Rights Commission. Just 1 second, I'm trying to get my the right screen to be on your, and I believe you can see it now.
Yep.
So I will present a summary of the report for fiscal year 21, and Amanda will present some highlights for the upcoming or the current work plan. But before we start, I just want to express some gratitude for the volunteers who left the commission. In the past year, we had Serena Markstrom and Rick Guerra, who left the commission after serving 3 years. Bonnie Souza left the commission after serving the maximum length that is allowed continuously. She was in the commission for 6 years. And Joey Boa just left us after completing 5 years in the commission, and he's now dedicating more time to his environmental justice work. We appreciate all their dedication to the community. They do a lot, and especially in a year like the past one, with all the challenges we faced, they engaged in meetings, they worked through the work plan, and they also served in hiring panels, community engagement processes, and external events as much as possible. And to present a summary of the work, the 2021 work plan, I will start talking about events. Because of the pandemic, we had a limited number of events, but one that got some attention from the community was the celebration of International Human Rights Day. We did a virtual celebration with a showing of Healing from Hate and a panel discussion. And that was a really interesting experience because we made that documentary available for the community. And we had a panel discussion with people who helped prepare that movie. And it is a way for us to understand how we can get people who have been engaged in hate groups, hate activities, to get out of that mentality. And other events included a listening session for the Asian community, and we got some ideas on how to improve our reporting system and our support for victims of hate and bias, and also the NLK awards. Also, because of the pandemic, fewer opportunities for sponsorship. Usually the commission sponsors about 10 events every year. Last year, we had 2 internal activities organized by the Homelessness and Poverty Work Group, including a campaign to increase awareness of the reporting systems, so people who have been victims of hate and bias incidents or crimes can report to the city. And the commission sponsored 3 external events, one for NAACP, the Film Festival of the Archaeology Channel, and also a special showing organized by Disorients, Mu and the Vanishing World. Also connect to the increase in hate crimes affecting the Asian community. Members of the Human Rights Commission served in the ad hoc committee on police policy. 5 commissioners were in that group, 2 representing the commission and 3 representing the other associations. But that large number of HRC commissioners attending the ad hoc process really gave them a lot of insights and material for discussion at HRC meetings, and several recommendations made at HRC meetings were incorporated into the ad hoc final report. They also helped us with the CSI engagement sessions, and they serve in the standing boards and commissions. The HRC has liaisons to most boards and commissions. Some recommendations made last year included the request for adding housing status to the city code. You have voted to include housing status in the intimidation code, and it's still in process, a conversation about adding housing status to the human rights code as well. The commission made recommendations about services that we could provide for the unhoused community, and also changes in policies, some through the ad hoc process, some through the police commission. And this is the current roster for the HRC. I will leave it up while I pass it on to Amanda to talk about the upcoming work plan.
Alrighty. So our work plan this year, thank you, Fabio, by the way. Our work plan this year, there was a lot of things in there that we kept from our previous year, since with the pandemic, it was hard to get to all of the things that we had planned to do. But some of the things that we have added for this year we have 3 of our main work groups. Our work group, the We See You work group, they're looking at, oh, there you go, now you can see it, engaging members of culturally marginalized communities with respect to the COVID-19 pandemic. They've done some work around this, around specifically Asian Pacific Islanders and COVID vaccines. That was great work. They collected a lot of information and then also helped connect folks to vaccinations. And then the group's really interested in the work of advocating for a multicultural center, and then also this project on researching what other cities are doing regarding addressing systemic inequities, and then also looking at what the city of Eugene is doing in that realm as well. And I'll take the next slide, Fabio. And then our homelessness and poverty work group, we've been meeting consistently through COVID, and we're looking at doing a little bit of restructuring to that group. But mostly this year, our goals are around engaging unhoused communities to encourage reporting of hate and bias incidents to HR&I, and continuing to advocate to recognize homeless people as a protected group, and then identifying barriers and strategies for ending homelessness. And I'll take the next one. So this Economic Opportunities Committee, this is a new work group that we came up with last year, but before COVID. And then COVID hit, and the group was unable to meet and meet their goals and all of that. So this group, we have new members, and Ibrahim Koulibaly is the lead of this committee. And we have some new members in the commission and new energy around this topic. So this group has been reignited, I guess. So they're looking at identifying needs to support long-term economic success of populations that experience economic disadvantages. And then they're looking at the current economic development incentives, grants and tax breaks, etc., and other supports in terms of racial justice. And then they're looking at evaluating current public contracting opportunities for minority-owned and underserved businesses. So that group has a lot of there's a lot of big topics there, but they have a lot of motivation as well. So, and I think that is it for our slides about the work plan.
Thank you so much, Anna. Appreciate all of the comments, and first Fabio's recognition of the members of the committee who have rotated off. And this council will remember that some of those members have been very instrumental in moving council policies along. Bonnie Souza was instrumental in that Marginalized Voices report, which still is sort of a framework for a lot of our actions to create a safer and more welcoming community. Joel Iboa was instrumental in addressing white supremacy, sanctuary city law. I mean, all of those pieces came from that leadership. And so appreciation to all of those who have served on the committee, and appreciation to you, Amanda, now for stepping up and preparing for this coming year. I will turn this over to Claire with a comment.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, thank you, Amanda and Fabio, for giving us this nice, succinct update. And I really appreciate the work of the Human Rights Commission. And as the mayor pointed out, there's been some work out of this commission that has helped inform city policy, also the creation of a new position to work on multicultural liaison. So, it's a committee. It's one of our longer standing committees in terms of its existence, and one that I think it brings together so many aspects of important work that we care about and don't always know exactly how to tackle. So it's super important to have this commission and the caliber of folks who serve on it. And then I just wanted to take a minute to brag, because the roster is included and shows which wards members come from. And I believe there are 5 commissioners who are Ward 7 constituents, which is fantastic. And that includes you, Amanda. So I wouldn't have realized that if the formatting hadn't pointed it out. And just want to appreciate everyone's service on the commission. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Randy, and then Matt.
Thank you, Mayor. As you saw, I'm the council representative to this group, and I'll tell you, it's been a really good learning experience for me. I've enjoyed the professionalism and the dedication and passion that the members bring to this. I think Amanda's been doing an awesome job of serving as chair, and I certainly appreciate Fabio and the work he does to kind of keep the gears meshed and the wheels turning. I'm not going to get into a whole lot of specifics, but I am interested to hear what my colleagues have to say. But again, I think this is very important work that this group is doing. And I certainly appreciate the time I've spent so far. So thank you.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you, Mayor. Just checking the roster, there are also 3 amazing heavy hitters from South Eugene, from Ward 2, who make up the Human Rights Commission. So thanks to Daniel, to Ibrahim, and to Heather for your work. Bonnie Sousa and I met in 2008 on the Barack Obama campaign, and I consider Bonnie a friend. She's a neighbor. She lives down the street. She's a constituent. And her service to our community, and in particular on the HRC these past 6 years, has been above and beyond. So I just wanted to take a moment just to thank my friend Bonnie for her service.
Thank you. Alan, take it away.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I wanted to thank all those that are stepping off for their service to our community. I can guarantee you made the community a better place for having done that. In particular, Bonnie and Joel, who have served quite a long time on the committee and brought a lot to the HRC and spent a lot of time and effort doing it. My hat's off to those two. I like the 3 work groups: the We See You, the advocacy, and the homelessness and poverty. I think those are the right areas for people to focus. I like the work plan for 2022. And I think it's the right areas to be focusing on. Although, Claire, I think it is actually a problem that 50% of the commission is in 1 ward and then 80% is in 2 wards. If we want the credibility and the HRC to have representation of the community, it needs to be the community. And I'm not suggesting that we have 1 rep from each ward, but 80% from 2 wards strikes me as a problem that we need to look at in the future. So I think I like the work plan. Are we going to approve this, Mayor? Is that the idea? I think we should, and it's good.
Yes, that's coming after everyone's had a chance to speak.
Right. So I think that's something I could support. Thank you.
All right, Jennifer.
Thank you. So Amanda, first of all, it was very wonderful to serve on the Police Commission with you. So thank you so much. And I'm always impressed to see all the liaison positions that the HRC does beyond the work that they have to do on their own commission. So that's very impressive. And I think this is unique to the HRC, but the way I understand it is your work groups include folks that aren't appointed, they're just volunteers. And I'm wondering if you can, I'm not sure how that works, but if someone was interested in that, can you explain how one becomes one of those people?
Yeah, and thank you. And yeah, I've really enjoyed being on Police Commission. It's been a great experience. And I'm excited to move to the CRB. Yeah, if folks want to be on one of our work groups, they contact the commissioner that's the lead of that work group. So Kirsten London is the lead, or I'm sorry, Heather Selecki is the lead of the Poverty and Homelessness work group. And Ibrahim, like I mentioned, is for the Economic Opportunities. And then Daniel is the lead for We See You. So folks can reach out, and then they can be added to those work groups. And we frequently do need members, and especially folks who are have a particular interest in that area.
Great. That's all I had. I just wanted to hear. Thanks, Amanda.
Claire, another comment?
Well, I didn't want the public to be left with the impression that I somehow stacked the Human Rights Commission. I mean, this is a joint process that we all have a chance to vote on. And I saw Councillor Clark, his head nod about representation. And I invite Councillor Clark to recruit folks to apply for all our boards and commissions, and they'll all be duly considered. I think it's just a fluke that this many folks from Ward 7 are on the commission. It's not typical. Typically, they're all from Ward 2 on our boards and commissions. So I just didn't want anyone to think like somehow I had slipped one past y'all. But also I appreciate Councilor Ye mentioning about the liaisons. I served on the police commission for a few years as a city councilor, and having that human rights commissioner there at the table was very important, and I think really added a lot of value to the work of the police commission. I didn't attend human rights commission meetings, so I don't know how if it also went the other direction, but I suspect that it does. So I think that is, makes, again, not to disparage any of our other boards and commissions, but it's a unique extra layer of work that this commission takes on.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to add one or two other comments, which is how much I appreciate the focus on equity, and that the fact that this commission has liaisons on all these other commissions means that we are continuing to connect the dots, and that this commission is connecting the dots in terms of how each of these activities, whether we're talking about the police commission or whether we're talking about the housing policy board, and that fundamentally there are equity questions at play, and that this is the commission that really addresses those. And I also applaud your focus on multiculturalism and continuing to look at a multicultural center. That has been a kind of a cherished dream of mine as well. And so I look forward to that further discussion about that. And with that, I will turn it over to Jennifer to put a motion on the table.
Thanks, Mayor. I move to approve the Human Rights Commission FY 2022 work plan.
Second.
All in favor, please raise your hands. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 in support, none opposed. Thank you so much. Thank you very much for your excellent work and your report, and for joining us tonight. Thank you, Fabio. And with that, we are adjourned. I'll see you back here at 7:30.